Carvane hated humans before he had ever seen one. That was what he had been taught. Humans were weak. Humans were slow. Humans were soft creatures from a blue world that survived only because the galaxy had ignored them for too long. That was the lesson written in every military book of the Varn Dominion. It was spoken in every training hall. It was repeated by every officer until young soldiers believed it like breathing. Carr believed it too, until the sky broke open above Helios 9. He was lying in the mud when it happened. Rain fell in black sheets. Not water, ash and fuel. The battlefield had been burning for 3 days, and now the clouds themselves smelled like metal. Around him, Varn soldiers crawled through broken stone. Their armor was cracked. Their rifles were overheating. Their commanders were dead or silent. Across the valley, the Threx coalition kept firing. Blue plasma lines cut through the smoke. Every shot made the ground jump. Every explosion pushed more dirt into Carr's mouth. He pressed one hand against the wound in his side. Warm blood slipped between his fingers. His helmet screen flickered. Command link lost. Carr laughed once, but no sound came out. The Dominion had promised victory. They had said Helios 9 would fall in 6 hours. They had said the Threx were cowards. They had said no outside power would interfere. Then the humans arrived. At first, Carr thought it was another storm. A shadow moved across the clouds. Not fast, not loud, just impossibly large. The firing slowed. Even the Threx weapons across the valley began to pause, one by one, as if every soldier had forgotten what war was. Carr rolled on his back and looked up. Something covered the stars. A battleship. No, not a battleship. A moving wall of black steel, wider than any Dominion carrier, silent as a grave. Its lower hull passed through the clouds, pushing smoke away in slow waves. White lights glowed along its edges, not like decoration, but like eyes opening in the dark. For one breath, nobody fired. Then every communication channel screamed at once. Human vessel entering combat zone. Targeted. No response from Earth Command. Do not fire. Repeat, do not. The Threx fired first. A bright spear of plasma rose from the far ridge and struck the human ship. The beam hit its side and vanished. No explosion, no damage, no return fire. Carr's mouth went dry. The human ship did not punish them. It did not fire back. It simply lowered itself between both armies, between the Dominion and the Coalition, between enemies who had spent generations teaching their children to hate each other. The battleship blocked the stars. Then a human voice came through every broken speaker on the battlefield. Calm, deep, tired. This is the Terran battleship Mercy of Iron. All forces will cease fire. No one moved. The voice continued. You are firing across a civilian evacuation route. There are 31,000 non-combatants under this valley. Children, medical staff, prisoners, and wounded from both sides. Carr froze. Under the valley? That was impossible. His officers had said the tunnels were empty. The Threx had said the same thing in capture broadcasts. The human voice did not rise. You have 6 seconds to lower weapons. A Dominion officer somewhere screamed. Humans have no authority here. The battleship answered with silence. Then every weapon on the battlefield died. Carr's rifle went cold in his hands. The Threx cannons across the valley went dark. Missile systems shut down. Target screens turned black. Even the drone swarm above the ridge dropped from the air like dead insects. No explosion. No warning shot. Just control. Carr stared at his useless rifle. For the first time in his life, he felt a fear that had nothing to do with death. The humans had not attacked. They had simply decided the war was over. Then smaller ships began falling from the belly of the battleship. Not fighters. Medical craft. Rescue pods. Armored dropships marked with a red human cross and a white Earth symbol. They landed on both sides of the valley. Carr pushed himself backward through the mud. No, he whispered. A human was walking toward him. The figure was tall, covered in dark armor, but not carrying a raised weapon. A white medical band was painted across one shoulder. Rain ran down the human's visor. Carr lifted his dead rifle anyway. The human stopped, looked at him, then slowly placed its own rifle on the ground. Carr did not understand. The human stepped closer, one hand open. Behind the visor, a calm female voice spoke. You are bleeding badly. Carr bared his teeth. I am your enemy. The human knelt beside him. Not right now. Carr tried to move away, but pain tore through his side. His vision flashed white. The human pressed a seal against his wound. He expected poison. He expected interrogation. He expected the cold mercy of a soldier finishing the job. Instead, the bleeding slowed. The human checked his pulse with steady fingers. Across the valley, Carr saw other humans doing the same thing. They were lifting Threx soldiers, carrying Dominion wounded, pulling civilians from hidden tunnel doors beneath shattered stone. They did not ask uniforms first. They did not ask who had started the war. They moved like machines, but their hands were careful. A Threx soldier nearby screamed when a Dominion officer was placed beside him on a stretcher. "Keep that animal away from me." The human medic turned her head. Her voice stayed calm. "Both of you are alive because we arrived. Do not waste it." Carr stared at her. No anger, no pride, no fear, just command. That frightened him more than the ship, because humans were not acting like conquerors. They were acting like adults walking into a room full of children holding knives. Above them, the massive battleship held its position, blocking the sky, blocking the war, blocking every lie Carr had ever believed. Then the ground beneath the valley opened. Hidden tunnel doors lifted, and the first civilians came out. Small Threx children, old Dominion workers, medical staff from both sides, prisoners in broken chains. Thousands of them. Carr watched them blink under the ash rain. He watched humans form a shield wall around them, not facing one army, facing both. The human medic helped Carr onto a stretcher. He grabbed her wrist. "Why?" he asked. His voice was weak. "Why save us?" The human looked toward the burning valley. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she answered, "Because someone has to stop counting enemies when the children are still breathing." Carr had no reply. The stretcher lifted. The battlefield moved beneath him. For the first time, he saw the war from above the mud. Both armies were broken. Both flags were burned. Both sides had lied. And the humans, the weak humans, had placed one battleship between them and made the entire galaxy listen. As the medical craft carried him upward, Carr looked through the rear window. The human battleship filled the sky. Its name glowed faintly on the black hull. Mercy of Iron. Carr finally understood. The galaxy had not feared humans because they were cruel. It feared them because they could be strong without becoming cruel. And that was a kind of power no empire knew how to fight. Carr woke inside white light. For a moment, he thought he was dead. There was no mud, no ash rain, no burning valley, only a clean ceiling above him and a soft sound beside his bed. A machine breathed slowly. His side hurt, but the bleeding had stopped. He tried to move. A calm voice said, "Don't." Carr turned his head. The human medic was sitting near the wall, cleaning dried blood from her gloves. Not his blood only. Threx blood too. Dominion blood too. She looked tired, not weak. Tired in the way soldiers became tired after seeing too much and still choosing to stand. Carr swallowed. "Where am I?" "Medical deck. Terran battleship Mercy of Iron." His body went cold. A human ship. He was inside the enemy's ship. He looked around quickly. Across the room, other wounded soldiers lay in rows. Dominion. Threx. Side by side. Some were unconscious. Some were awake and staring at each other with hate they were too weak to use. Near the far wall, a Threx officer tried to sit up. A human nurse gently pushed him back down. "Rest." The Threx hissed, "I will not share air with Dominion murderers." A Dominion soldier shouted from the next bed, "You burned our farms first." The room tightened. Old anger rose like smoke. Then the main door opened. A human commander walked in. No crown. No hobby models. No loud guards. Just a woman in a dark uniform, with gray hair tied behind her head and a small scar under her left eye. The room went quiet before she spoke. That was the strange thing about humans. They did not fill the air with threats. They made silence feel like an order. The commander looked at both sides. "My name is Captain Mara Ellison," she said. "You are alive because my crew decided you were not done being alive." No one answered. She walked between the beds slowly. "The war outside is paused, not ended. Your leaders are screaming through every channel. Each side claims we attacked their sovereignty." Carr watched her face. There was no fear in it, only disappointment. Captain Ellison stopped in the center of the room. "There are 31,000 civilians on this ship now. 12,000 Dominion. 15,000 Threx. 4,000 mixed laborers your governments forgot to count." A Threx soldier lowered his eyes. A Dominion officer looked away. Carr felt something heavy settle in his chest. Forgot to count. That sounded worse than killed. Killed meant someone had noticed you. Forgotten meant you had become nothing before death even arrived. Captain Ellison continued. We found a tunnel network 6 hours before your final assault. Both commands knew civilians were still inside. Both commands fired anyway. Carr's throat tightened. No, he said. It came out weak. The captain turned to him. Carr tried again. Our command said the tunnels were empty. And the Threx command said Dominion soldiers were using children as shields, Captain Ellison replied. The Threx officer stiffened. That is what they told us. I know, she said. No judgment. Just fact. That made it worse. Carr looked across the room at the Threx soldier who had insulted him earlier. For the first time, he did not see an enemy. He saw another soldier who had been given a story and ordered to die inside it. A low alarm sounded. The lights dimmed once. The human medic stood. Captain Ellison touched the wall screen. A battlefield image appeared in the air. Helios 9 hung below them, wounded and dark. Around it, Dominion cruisers gathered on one side. Threx destroyers gathered on the other. Both fleets had arrived. Both wanted their soldiers back. Both wanted the civilians. Both wanted the humans gone. Carr stared at the image. They will fire on this ship. The human captain nodded. They might. You have wounded from both armies here. Yes. You have children. Yes. Then move. Captain Ellison looked at him. We are not leaving the evacuation route. Carr could not understand her. You are surrounded. A small smile touched her face, but it was not amused. So are they. The screen shifted. Carr saw something new. Not weapons aimed at fleets. Not missiles. Not fighters. Human rescue ships were still moving between the planet and the battleship. Line after line of civilians came up from the ruined tunnels. The humans were continuing the evacuation while 2 angry fleets aimed weapons at them. The Threx officer whispered, insane. Captain Ellison heard him. No. Decided. The first Dominion transmission broke through the speakers. Terran vessel. Return our citizens and prisoners. Withdraw from Dominion war space. A second voice cut in, Threx and sharp. Human ship. Release coalition survivors. Any Dominion personnel aboard are war criminals. Captain Ellison pressed one button. Her voice went out to both fleets. This is Captain Mara Ellison of the Terran battleship Mercy of Iron. You will not receive prisoners. You will receive survivors. You will not fire through civilians. You will not board this ship. You will wait. The Dominion admiral laughed over the channel. Earth has no power here. Captain Ellison looked toward the viewing glass. Then test that belief carefully. The channel went dead. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then both fleets powered weapons. Carr felt the ship hum beneath him. He had served on Dominion warships. He knew that sound. The Mercy of Iron was waking up. But the humans did not rush. No shouting filled the halls. No panic. Only quiet movement outside the medical room. Boots. Orders. Doors sealing. Machines preparing. The human medic returned to Carr's side and locked his bed restraints. He looked at her. You're going to fight. She shook her head. We're going to hold. The first shots came from both sides. Dominion lances from the left. Threx plasma from the right. They crossed space toward the human battleship. Carr held his breath. The ship did not fire back. A field opened around it. Not bright. Not beautiful. Just a clear bend in space, like reality itself had become glass. The attacks struck the shield and spread across it in silent waves. The medical room trembled. A child cried somewhere beyond the wall. The human medic did not look afraid. She placed one hand on the bed beside Carr, steadying him. Breathe. Another strike hit. Then another. The fleets kept firing. The Mercy of Iron stayed between them, blocking the stars, blocking the civilians, blocking the hate of 2 empires that had forgotten what they were protecting. Carr stared at the captain on the screen. She stood on the bridge, hands behind her back, watching 2 armies waste their rage against her shield. Then she gave one order. Show them. The screen changed again. Suddenly, every ship in both fleets received the tunnel footage. Carr saw it with them. Civilians trapped underground. Children sharing air masks. Dominion doctors treating Threx wounded. Threx engineers holding cracked doors shut while Dominion families crawled through. No propaganda. No speeches. Just truth. Then came command recordings. Dominion officers confirming civilians remained. Threx leaders approving strikes anyway. Both sides. Both guilty. Both exposed. The firing slowed. One Dominion cruiser stopped. Then another. On the Threx side, a destroyer powered down its forward guns. The truth did what weapons could not. It made soldiers look at their own hands. Carr felt his eyes burn. He remembered laughing when his instructors called humans weak. Now he understood why they were feared. Humans did not only bring ships. They brought mirrors. And empires hated mirrors more than missiles. The Dominion Admiral's voice returned, lower now. You had no right to record classified command channels. Captain Ellison answered, you had no right to bury children under a battlefield. No one replied. For a long moment, the galaxy felt still. Then something unexpected happened. A small Dominion medical shuttle broke formation. It moved toward the human battleship. Its weapons were off. A Threx shuttle followed from the other side. Then another. Then 6 more. Not warships. Medical ships. Transport ships. Ships with frightened pilots who had watched the footage and chosen something different from orders. Captain Ellison nodded once. Open lanes. Screen for weapons. Let them take their wounded. Carr turned his head slowly toward the Threx officer across the room. The Threx was already looking at him. Neither spoke. There was too much history between them. Too many dead. Too many burned cities. But for the first time, the silence did not feel like hate. It felt like a beginning that neither trusted yet. Hours passed. The evacuation ended near dawn over Helios 9. 31,000 civilians were moved. 9,000 wounded soldiers treated. Both fleets remained in orbit, quiet and ashamed. No peace treaty was signed that day. No empire surrendered. No anthem played. But the war stopped. Not because humans destroyed anyone. Because they saved everyone in front of witnesses. Carr was transferred last. Before leaving, he found the human medic near the hangar door. She was drinking from a small metal cup, hands shaking slightly now that the danger had passed. Carr stood with help from a walking brace. I never asked her name, he said. She looked up. Leah Moss. He repeated it carefully. Leah Moss. She gave a tired nod. Carr looked toward the hangar window. Outside, Dominion and Threx ships floated on opposite sides of the human battleship, still separated, but no longer firing. I was told humans were weak. Leah looked at the huge warship beyond the glass. Maybe we are. Carr frowned. She continued. Maybe that is why we know what fear does to people. He did not know what to say. So he said the only true thing left. You saved your enemies. Leah put the cup down. No, we saved people. Enemy is a word commanders use when they are too far away to hear someone crying. Carr carried those words back to the Dominion shuttle. Years later, when he was no longer a soldier, he would write the first honest history of Helios 9. He would not call it the day humanity conquered the battlefield. He would not call it the day 2 empires were defeated. He would write one line at the beginning of the record. The war ended when the strongest ship in the sky refused to choose who deserved to live. And under that line, he wrote the name that still made the galaxy lower its voice. Mercy of Iron. 3 years after Helios 9, Carr Vane stood inside the Grand Hall of the Dominion. He was no longer wearing armor. No rifle. No command badge. Only a plain dark coat and a small scar across his side where a human medic had once stopped his bleeding. The hall was full of leaders. Dominion ministers sat on the left. Threx delegates sat on the right. Between them stood 12 human officers. Not many. No army. No threat. Just 12 humans and one empty chair in the center. That empty chair was for the dead. For everyone buried under Helios 9. Carr looked at it and felt the same weight again. The old Dominion Prime Minister rose first. His voice was smooth. Today we gather to discuss peace. Carr almost laughed. Peace. That word sounded clean in halls like this. But on Helios 9, peace had smelled like blood, burned cloth, and medicine. The Threx ambassador stood next. We request full recognition of war crimes committed by the Dominion. The Dominion side erupted. You fired first. You hid weapons in civilian tunnels. You used prisoners. Voices rose. Old anger returned. The humans did not move. Captain Mara Ellison stood at the center, gray hair tied back, face calm. Beside her was Leah Moss, the medic who had saved Carr. Leah looked older now. Not by years. By memory. Carr watched both sides shout. Then Captain Ellison raised one hand. The room quieted. Not because they respected her loss. Because every person there remembered the battleship that had blocked the stars. Captain Ellison spoke softly. This is not peace. No one answered. This is fear wearing polite clothes. The hall became still. She pointed to the empty chair. You keep arguing about who started the fire, but none of you want to admit you kept feeding it. A Dominion minister stood angrily. You cannot judge us. Captain Ellison turned to him. You are right. That surprised the room. She continued. Humans are not here to rule your worlds. We are not here to write your history. We are here because 31,000 civilians asked us to witness the truth. The Threx ambassador narrowed his eyes. What truth? Leah Moss stepped forward. She placed a small recorder on the table. The lights dimmed. A projection opened above the empty chair. Not where footage this time. Faces. A Dominion child sharing food with a Threx prisoner. A Threx doctor holding pressure on a Dominion worker's wound. A mixed labor team digging through collapsed stone while both armies fired above them. People saving people while leaders called them enemies. The hall grew quiet in a different way. Not fear. Shame. Carr felt his throat tighten. He had seen soldiers cry before, but seeing leaders go silent was stranger. Captain Ellison looked at them. This is the part your reports removed. The projection changed. Now it showed names. Thousands of names. Not divided by empire. Not marked as Dominion or Threx. Just names. One after another. The list moved slowly. The hall watched for a long time. No one interrupted. Then Carr saw his own name. Carr Vane, recovered alive, medical deck 7. Beside it, Torek San, Threx officer, recovered alive, medical deck 7. Carr turned. Across the hall, Torek San was there. The same Threx officer who once refused to share air with him. Torek met his eyes. Neither smiled, but neither looked away. That was enough. The Dominion Prime Minister sat down slowly. What do you want from us? He asked. Captain Ellison answered. Nothing. That shook them more than any demand. She continued. Humans did not come for territory. We did not come for tribute. We came because your war crossed a line. What line? The Threx ambassador asked. Leah Moss answered this time. The line where victory becomes more important than the living. Carr closed his eyes. He remembered mud, ash rain, a dead rifle, a human hand pressing medicine into his wound. He remembered saying, I am your enemy. And Leah saying, not right now. That sentence had destroyed more of his training than any weapon could. The debate lasted 9 hours. There were no grand speeches after that. Only tired truth. The Dominion admitted its commanders knew civilians were underground. The Threx admitted the same. Both sides tried to soften the words. The humans did not allow it. Not with anger. With records. With names. With silence whenever someone lied. By the end, the first Helios Accord was written. It did not end all hatred. No paper could do that. But it created one rule no empire could ignore. No civilian shelter could be targeted. No rescue vessel could be fired on. No wounded soldier could be denied treatment because of uniform. And any world that broke those rules would answer not to Earth's anger, but to Earth's witness. That became the true fear. Not that humans would destroy you, but that humans would show the galaxy exactly what you had become. After the signing, Carr walked outside onto the balcony. The capital city glowed beneath him. For years he had thought it beautiful. Now he saw how many monuments were shaped like weapons. Torek joined him. For a while, they stood in silence. Then the Threx officer spoke. I hated you. Carr nodded. I hated you too. Torek looked at the sky. Strange. It feels smaller now. The hate. The war. Carr understood. War had felt huge when they were inside it. Like the whole universe existed only to feed it. But after Helios 9, it looked smaller. Ugly. Human-made, even when aliens fought it. Torek held out one hand. Carr looked at it. 3 years ago, he would have died before touching it. Now he took it. Not as a friend. Not yet. But as a witness. Below them, the city bells began to ring. The accord was official. History would remember the day as peace. But Carr knew better. Peace had not begun in that hall. It had begun in the mud when a human put down a rifle. Later, before leaving, Carr found Leah near the landing platform. The mercy of iron waited above the city, visible even in daylight. Still massive. Still silent. Still blocking part of the sky. You are leaving? Carr asked. Leah nodded. There are other wars. He looked at the battleship. Will humans always come? Leah's face became serious. No. That answer hurt more than he expected. She continued. We're not gods, Carr. We cannot save everyone. But when we arrive, we try not to forget who we are. Carr looked down. Your ship frightens the galaxy. Leah gave a small, tired smile. It should. Because of its weapons? No. She looked at the leaders leaving the hall behind them. Because it reminds powerful people that someone may be watching. Carr understood then. The title the galaxy gave humans was wrong. They were not terrifying because they loved war. They were terrifying because they could enter war and still recognize a child, a prisoner, a bleeding enemy, a lie. That kind of strength could not be measured by fleet size. It could not be defeated by propaganda. It stayed. Years later, Carr finished his book. On the last page, he did not write about human guns. He did not write about shields or battleships or fleets. He wrote about one small moment. A wounded soldier in the mud, a dead rifle in his hand, a human medic kneeling beside him, and the sentence that ended his war before the Accord ever did. Not right now. Under it, Carr wrote the final line. The galaxy learned fear when humanity blocked the stars, but learned hope when humanity saved the enemy beneath them. 20 years later, Carr Vane returned to Helios 9. This time, no smoke covered the sky. No plasma burned across the valley. No soldiers crawled through mud with broken rifles. The valley was quiet. Grass had grown where the battlefield once opened like a wound. Small white stones stood in long rows. Each stone carried a name. Dominion names. Threx names. Names of workers. Names of children. Names of prisoners no one had claimed until humans forced the galaxy to count them. Carr walked slowly between them. His body was older now. His side still hurt in cold weather. The scar had never fully stopped reminding him. But he was alive. That still felt strange. At the center of the memorial stood a simple metal wall. No statue of a hero. No image of a battleship. Only one line carved deep into the surface. No one is an enemy while they are still bleeding. Carr touched the words with 2 fingers. He knew who had written them. Leah Moss, the human medic. She had died 5 years earlier on another rescue mission, far from Helios 9, pulling civilians out of a burning moon station. No anthem had played for her. No empire had claimed her. But across the galaxy, wounded soldiers still whispered her name like a prayer. Behind Carr, small footsteps approached. He turned. A group of students stood there, led by a young teacher. Dominion and Threx children stood together, wearing the same gray school coats. That sight still made something move inside him. Once, their grandparents had killed each other. Now their children shared books. The teacher bowed slightly. Professor Vane, they wanted to meet you. Carr almost corrected her. He still did not like titles. But the children were staring at him with wide eyes, so he only nodded. One young Threx girl lifted her hand. Were you really there when the human ship came? Carr looked toward the sky. Yes. A Dominion boy stepped forward. Were you scared? Carr smiled faintly. Yes. Because the ship was big. At first. The boy frowned. Then why? Carr looked at the memorial stones. Because I understood that everything I believed could be wrong. The children grew quiet. That was harder to explain than battle. Battle was simple. Someone fired. Someone fell. Someone won or lost. But truth did not arrive like fire. It arrived like a hand reaching toward you when you expected a blade. Carr sat on a low stone bench. The children gathered around him. He pointed toward the valley. I was lying there, in the mud. I had a rifle in my hand and hate in my head. I thought the Threx across the valley were monsters. The Threx girl looked down. Carr softened his voice. And they thought the same about me. The Dominion boy asked, then the humans saved everyone? No, Carr said. The children looked confused. The humans did not save everyone. Many had already died. That is important to remember. Stories become dangerous when they make rescue sound easy. He let the words settle. The humans saved who they could, and then they made sure the dead were not hidden. The teacher nodded slowly. Above them, the afternoon sky brightened. A shadow crossed the valley. The children looked up. Carr already knew what it was. A ship moved slowly across the sun. Not as massive as the Mercy of Iron, but still Terran. Dark metal, white markings, medical lights glowing softly along its lower hull. The children gasped. One whispered human ship. The vessel did not land. It only passed over the memorial, slow and silent. A salute. Carr stood. His old legs trembled slightly, but he stood straight. The ship's shadow covered the stones for a moment. For one breath, the stars disappeared again. But this time, no one screamed. No one fired. No one ran. The children simply watched. The Threx girl asked, "Are humans still scary?" Car thought carefully. Yes. Her eyes widened. But not the way people think. He looked at the ship as it moved beyond the valley. Humans are scary because they ask what you did when no one was watching. They are scary because they remember names. They are scary because sometimes they stand in front of weapons and say no. The Dominion boy stared at the memorial wall. Were they stronger than both armies? Carr nodded. Yes. Because of the battleship? Carr shook his head. No. Because the battleship obeyed the people inside it. The children did not understand fully. That was fine. Some truths needed years. Carr reached into his coat and removed a small object. A metal cup. Old. Scratched. Human-made. Leah had left it with him after the accord signing. She had said nothing grand. Only, keep it. You look like someone who forgets to drink water. The children looked at it with curiosity. This belonged to the medic who saved my life, Carr said. Was she a warrior? The Threx girl asked. Carr looked at the cup. She walked into battle without wanting one. That answer seemed to satisfy them. The teacher brought the children toward the memorial wall. They placed small white flowers at its base. Dominion flowers. Threx flowers. Human flowers, too, grown in a small greenhouse nearby, because Earth plants did not like Helios soil. Carr watched them. For years, he had thought the war ended when leaders signed the accord. Then he thought it ended when his book was published. Now he knew better. A war truly ended when children could stand on its battlefield and not inherit its hate. The human ship faded into the clouds. Only the open sky remained. Carr took one last look at the valley. He remembered the old sound of weapons. Then the silence when the mercy of iron arrived. Then Leah's voice. Not right now. Those 3 words had followed him across his whole life. They had stopped him from returning to the army. They had made him write the truth. They had made him shake hands with Torexon. They had made him speak to children instead of generals. Not right now. Not enemy right now. Not hate right now. Not war right now. Maybe that was how peace survived. Not forever. Just one moment at a time. The teacher returned. Professor, do you want to say something before we leave? Carr looked at the children. They waited. He could have spoken about history, about politics, about the Helios Accord, about the ship that blocked the stars. But those were large things, and large things often became lies when repeated too much. So he told them the smallest truth. I was saved by someone I was taught to hate. No one moved. Carr continued. And because of that, I spent the rest of my life asking who else I had been taught to hate without reason. The wind moved through the grass. The memorial stones stood quietly. The children listened. That was enough. As they walked back toward the transport, the Dominion boy turned and asked one final question. Professor Vane, what happened to the mercy of iron? Carr looked up. Somewhere far beyond the clouds, somewhere between worlds, maybe the old battleship was still moving. Maybe it had been retired. Maybe it had become metal in a museum. Or maybe humans had built another ship with another strange name and sent it toward another war. I don't know, Carr said. The boy looked disappointed. Carr smiled. But I know what it left behind. What? Carr pointed to the children. To you. The boy did not answer. He only looked back at the valley. For the first time, Carr saw no fear in his face. Only wonder. And that was the final victory humans never claimed. They had not conquered Helios 9. They had not taken its cities. They had not demanded statues. They had simply arrived, placed one ship between 2 armies, and reminded the galaxy that mercy could be stronger than revenge. Carr stepped into the transport. As the doors closed, he saw the memorial one last time. White stones, green grass, open sky, no block stars now, only light. And in that light, the galaxy finally understood the truth. Humanity's battleship had taught them fear, but humanity's mercy taught them what fear was meant to protect. The old recording was found by accident. It was not hidden inside a military vault. It was not protected by Dominion codes. It was found in a school archive on Helios 9, inside a small metal box with a broken lock. A young student named Syrah found it while cleaning the memorial library. She was only 16. She had never seen war. To her, Helios 9 was a quiet world of green valleys, white stones, and history lessons that adults spoke about with lowered voices. But inside the box was one small data chip. On it, someone had written 2 words by hand. Leah Moss. Syrah knew that name. Everyone on Helios 9 knew that name. The human medic. The woman who saved enemies. The woman whose sentence was carved on the memorial wall. No one is an enemy while they are still bleeding. Syrah took the chip to her teacher. By sunset, the whole class had gathered inside the memorial hall. Professor Carvane was there too. Old now. Very old. His hands shook when he held his cane. His voice was softer than before, but his eyes were still sharp, especially when someone spoke carelessly about war. The teacher placed the chip into the projector. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the room filled with static. A woman's face appeared. Leah Moss, younger than the statues showed her. Tired, helmet off, hair stuck to her forehead with sweat. Behind her, warning lights flashed red. The recording had been made inside the Mercy of Iron during the Helios evacuation. Syrah leaned forward. Carr stopped breathing. He had never seen this. Leah looked into the camera and gave a small, awkward smile. If this gets saved, then someone in records is better at their job than I am. A few students laughed softly. Carr did not. He watched her face like a man seeing a ghost. Leah continued. Medical Deck 7 is full. We are out of quiet places. Dominion on one side, Threx on the other. Everyone still hates everyone, but most of them are too tired to say it loudly. Her eyes shifted towards something off-screen. A distant explosion shook the image. She waited until it passed. We're being fired on by both fleets now. Captain Ellison says the shield will hold. She always says things like that. I think commanders are trained to lie kindly. Another soft laugh moved through the students. Then Leah's face changed. Not afraid. Honest. I am recording this because I don't know if we will survive the next hour. The room went silent. Carr's fingers tightened around his cane. Leah looked down, then back at the camera. I want someone to understand this. We did not come here because we were brave every moment. We were scared. All of us. The first time those fleets fired together, my hand shook so badly I dropped a sealant pack. She lifted her hand in the recording. It was trembling. Syrah stared at it. She had always imagined heroes as steady people. Leah was not steady. Leah continued. There is a Dominion soldier in bed 12. Carvane. He keeps telling me I should let him die because he is my enemy. There is a Threx officer across from him saying almost the same thing. A few students turned to Carr. He looked down. Leah smiled faintly. They sound different, but fear makes people very similar. The recording crackled. I don't know if they will ever stop hating each other. Maybe not. Maybe saving someone's life is not enough to change them. But I keep thinking it has to start somewhere. She paused. Behind her, someone cried out in pain. Leah turned away. Hold pressure, she shouted. The screen shook as she moved. For several seconds, the camera showed only the ceiling. Then Leah returned, breathing hard. Her gloves were wet with blood. She sat down again. I used to think mercy was soft, something people talked about after danger passed. But that is wrong. Mercy is heavy. It costs time. It costs safety. Sometimes it makes both sides hate you because you refuse to hate properly. Carr closed his eyes. The words entered the room slowly. Like truth had finally arrived late, carrying its own weight. Leah's voice lowered. If anyone watches this years from now, do not make us cleaner than we were. Do not turn us into legends. Legends are easy to admire and hard to learn from. Syrah swallowed. The human medic on the screen looked directly into the camera. We were ordinary. We were angry. We were afraid. But for 1 hour, we chose not to let fear decide who deserved help. The lights behind her flashed again. A voice called, Leah, we need you. She nodded towards someone off-screen. Then she looked back one last time. If Carvane survives, tell him he owes me a cup of water. He keeps pretending he is too proud to need it. The student smiled. Carr covered his mouth with one shaking hand. Leah stood. The recording should have ended there. But it did not. The camera kept running. It caught Leah walking back into the medical deck. It showed rows of wounded soldiers. Dominion. Threx. Humans. All under the same dim emergency lights. It showed her kneeling beside a young Threx soldier. Then beside a Dominion worker. Then beside Carr. Younger Carr. Bloodless. Angry. Alive. In the recording, he grabbed her wrist. His voice was weak, but clear. Why are you doing this? Leah did not answer at first. She adjusted the seal on his wound. Then she said the words everyone on Helios 9 knew. But now they heard them for the first time as they had truly been spoken. Not grand. Not cinematic. Not like a slogan. Just tired. Human. Real. Because right now you are bleeding. The recording ended. No music, no final speech, only black screen. For a long time, nobody moved. Outside, evening light passed through the memorial windows. It touched the names carved on the walls. Thousands of names. Names that had almost become numbers. Sierra looked at Professor Carr. His face was wet. She had never seen him cry before. "Professor," she whispered, "are you okay?" Carr nodded, but it was not true. He stood slowly. The teacher moved to help him, but he raised one hand. He walked to the front of the hall by himself. Every step looked painful. When he reached the empty chair at the center, he turned to the students. "You have been taught that humanity's battleship ended the war," he said. His voice was rough. "That is not fully true." The students listened. The battleship stopped the weapons. The shield stopped the fleets. The recordings exposed the lies. He looked at the black screen. "But the war inside me ended because one person refused to treat my hate as more important than my wound." No one spoke. Carr took the old metal cup from his coat. Leah's cup. He held it with both hands. "For 20 years, I kept this because I thought it reminded me of being saved." He looked at Sierra. "But now I think it was a question." "What question?" Sierra asked. Carr's eyes moved across the students. "When someone you're taught to hate is suffering, who do you become?" The hall felt larger after that. Larger and quieter. Carr placed the cup beside the projector. Not on the memorial wall. Not under his own name. Beside Leah's recording. "This belongs here now." The teacher bowed her head. So did the students. Outside, a ship passed high above the valley. Not Terran. Not Dominion. Not Threx. A joint rescue vessel. Built by all three worlds. Its hull carried a new name. Mercy Line 1. It was not a warship. It carried no heavy guns. It carried medical bays, evacuation pods, food stores, and thousands of empty seats. That was the legacy of the Mercy of Iron. Not fear alone. Not power alone. A line of ships sent toward disasters before armies could turn them into wars. Sierra watched it through the window. "Professor," she asked, "do you think humans knew this would happen?" Carr smiled faintly. "No. Then why do they do it?" He looked at Leah's frozen face on the screen. "Because good choices are not always made for history. Sometimes they are made for the person in front of you." That night, the recording was copied across the galaxy. Not by governments. By students. By nurses. By old soldiers who had never admitted they were tired. It reached Dominion cities and Threx colonies. It reached Earth. It reached ships at war. And in many places, for reasons no commander could fully explain, soldiers paused before firing on evacuation routes. Medics crossed lines. Prisoners received water. Children were counted first. Not everywhere. Not always. The galaxy did not become perfect, but became harder to lie. And sometimes that was how mercy won. Not all at once. Not loudly. One witness at a time. Carr Vane died the following winter. He was buried on Helios 9, not under a Dominion flag, but beneath the open sky. On his stone, the students carved no rank. No title. Only the sentence he had given them in his last lesson. He was saved by an enemy, and spent his life becoming less afraid of the truth. Years later, children still visited the hall. They watched Leah's recording. They saw her shaking hands. They heard her tired voice. And they learned the real story. Humanity's battleship blocked the stars and taught the galaxy fear. But one human medic knelt in the mud and taught it what strength was for. 40 years after Helios 9, a new ship entered the dark edge of the galaxy. It was not the Mercy of Iron. That old battleship had become history now. Children learned its name in school. Soldiers whispered it before ceasefires. Leaders hated it because it reminded them of the day power was forced to kneel before truth. But this new ship was different. It had no heavy cannons, no missile lines, no attack wings. Its hull was white, silver, and deep gray. Across its side, written in 3 languages, was one name: Mercy Line 1. It was the first rescue ship built by Earth, the Dominion, and the Threx together. Many people said it would fail. Old generals said enemies could not build trust from memory. Politicians said mercy was useful only after victory. Merchants said a ship without guns was a ship waiting to become wreckage. But the students of Helios 9 had grown older. They became doctors, pilots, engineers, teachers, and officers. And they remembered the recording of Leah Moss. They remembered Carr Vane's last question. When someone you are taught to hate is suffering, who do you become? That question became the heart of Mercy Line 1. Its first captain was Sira, the same girl who had found Leah's recording in the school archive. Now, she stood on the bridge, wearing a simple rescue uniform. Not Dominion, not Threx, not human, just the mark of the Mercy Line, a white circle around an open hand. Her crew came from many worlds. Humans operated the medical command deck. Threx engineers ran the shield systems. Dominion pilots controlled evacuation craft. No one fully trusted everyone. Not first, but trust was not a door that opened once. It was a bridge repaired every day. The distress call came near midnight ship time. A mining colony called Vesta Hollow had suffered a reactor collapse. Thousands were trapped below the surface. Toxic storms covered the planet. Communications were breaking apart. And there was one more problem. The colony belonged to a species called the Orvan. For 2 decades, the Orvan had refused every peace agreement with Earth, Dominion, and Threx Space. They called Mercy Line ships a trick. They called rescue laws weakness. They believed suffering made nations stronger. Now their children were trapped underground. The bridge became quiet. A Dominion officer looked at Sira. "Captain, Orvan warships are in the sector." A Threx engineer added, "They may fire if we cross the border." The human medical chief spoke softly. "They asked for help." The Dominion officer shook his head. "One civilian channel asked for help. Their government has not." Sira looked at the distress signal. It was weak, broken. A child's voice repeated through the static. "Please, there is smoke in the lower tunnels. We cannot open the door." No one on the bridge moved. Sira felt history standing behind her. Not as glory, as weight. She thought of Leah Moss with shaking hands. She thought of Carvane placing a metal cup beside a recording. She thought of a battleship that had blocked the stars because someone had to stand in the way. Sira gave the order. "Set course for Vesta Hollow." The Dominion officer turned. "Captain, if they fire, we hold, with no guns." Sira looked at him. "That is why this ship exists." Mercy Line 1 crossed the border 1 hour later. The Orvan warned them immediately. "Unauthorized vessel, leave our space." Sira opened a channel. "This is Mercy Line 1 responding to civilian distress. We are carrying medical teams and evacuation craft. You are not permitted. Your colony is dying. That is internal Orvan territory." Sira's voice stayed calm. "Smoke does not respect borders." There was silence. Then the Orvan fired. The first missile struck the forward shield and burst into white light. The bridge shook. Alarm sounded. The crew held their stations. A young Threx engineer whispered, "They're firing on a hospital ship." Sira looked at the planet on the screen. Storms moved across it like black oceans. Below those storms, children were still calling. "Continue approach," she said. Another missile hit. Then another. Mercy Line 1 did not fire back. It had nothing to fire. That was the terror of it. Not weakness. Choice. The Orvan expected a trap. They expected hidden weapons. They expected human revenge, or Dominion pride, or Threx deception. Instead, the ship opened its lower bays. Rescue craft dropped into the storm. White lights disappeared into darkness. Sira stood still as the shields burned around them. A human doctor on the bridge whispered, "Leah would have hated this." Sira looked at him. "What?" "She hated being called brave." Sira smiled sadly. "Then we won't call ourselves brave." The first rescue team reached the colony tunnels. Their camera feeds filled the bridge. Smoke, fallen metal, children behind a cracked door, old miners with burned hands, Orvan guards aiming weapons at the rescuers, confused because no enemy had ever arrived carrying oxygen masks. A Dominion rescuer stepped forward first. The Orvan guard shouted, "Stay back." The Dominion rescuer slowly placed his toolkit on the floor. Then he removed his helmet. Toxic smoke touched his face at once. He coughed, but he held both hands open. "We came for the children." The guard's rifle shook. Behind him, a child cried. That sound made the decision before pride could stop it. The guard lowered his weapon. Doors opened. Rescue began. For 6 hours, Mercy Line 1 held position above Vesta Hollow while Orvan ships fired around it, at it, near it. Some Orvan captains began to hesitate. Their screens showed rescue teams carrying Orvan children. Their sensors showed no weapons on Mercy Line 1. Their commanders ordered them to keep firing. One ship refused, then another, then 5. The Orvan fleet began to split. Not from defeat, from shame. Sira watched it happen with a tight chest. This was what humans had done at Helios 9. They had not destroyed armies. They had made obedience harder. A final transmission came from the Orvan flagship. Mercy Line 1, withdraw. You're causing political instability. Syrah almost laughed, but she did not. She answered with the truth. No, your dying citizens are. The channel cut. Below, the last evacuation craft lifted from a storm. 3,000 survivors. 700 children. 42 rescue workers injured. No shots fired by Mercy Line 1. When the final craft docked, the bridge stayed silent. No cheering. No victory. Rescue did not feel like victory when so many had almost been left behind. Syrah walked to the medical bay. Rows of Orvan survivors lay under warm lights. Some stared at the mixed crew with fear. Some with hatred. Some with confusion. A small Orvan boy sat alone on a bed, holding an oxygen mask with both hands. Syrah stopped beside him. He looked up. Are you human? No, she said. Dominion? No. Threx? No. He frowned. Then what are you? Syrah thought about it. A student. A captain. A child of a battlefield she had never fought on. A keeper of a question given by a dying old soldier. She sat beside him. I am someone who heard you calling. The boy looked down at the mask. My father said outsiders only help when they want something. Syrah nodded slowly. Sometimes they do. What do you want? She looked around the medical bay. At Dominion hands bandaging Orvan wounds. At Threx engineers fixing broken breathing units. At human doctors washing smoke from children's eyes. Then she answered, we want you alive long enough to decide what kind of person you will become. The boy did not understand. But one day, maybe he would. Years later, he would. His name was Arlen Voss. He would grow into the first Orvan leader to sign the Helios Accord. He would stand in Memorial Hall, where Leah's recording still played. He would touch the old metal cup. He would read Carr Vane's final lesson. And he would say one sentence before the whole galaxy. We fired on a ship that saved us, and it still came closer. That sentence changed Orvan history. Not quickly, never quickly, but deeply. The Mercy line grew after that. One ship became 10. 10 became 50. They went where governments were too proud to ask. They entered storms, wars, plagues, collapsing moons, broken stations, and refugee routes. Sometimes they were welcomed. Sometimes they were cursed. Sometimes they were fired upon. But wherever they went, the same message came first. We are not here to choose your side. We are here because someone is still alive. And slowly, the galaxy learned a new kind of fear. Not fear of human battleships. Not fear of Dominion fleets. Not fear of Threx weapons. Fear of being seen clearly. Fear of having no excuse left. Fear of hearing a child call for help and knowing the whole galaxy might ask why you did not answer. At the Helios 9 Memorial, many years after Carr's death, 3 objects were placed together in a glass case. A broken Dominion rifle, a cracked Threx officer's badge, and Leah Moss's small metal cup. Above them was no flag, only a sentence written in simple words. Power ends battles. Mercy ends wars. Children still came to see it. Some came from Earth, some from Dominion worlds, some from Threx colonies, some from Orvan stations. They would stand under the open sky and listen to the old story. The story of a battleship that blocked the stars. The story of a soldier who was saved by his enemy. The story of a medic whose hand shook but still reached out. And the story of a ship without guns that proved Mercy had survived its first war. The galaxy never became perfect. No honest history said it did. There were still borders. Still lies. Still leaders who loved victory more than life. But after Helios 9, there was always a chance that someone would arrive before the killing became easy. Someone with no flag that mattered. Someone with empty beds waiting. Someone who would step between enemies and say, not this child. Not this wounded one. Not right now. And that was why the stars felt different. Humanity had once sent a battleship and taught the galaxy fear. But the Mercy that followed taught the galaxy something stronger. It taught them that even in war, someone could still choose to be human. 70 years after Helios 9, the galaxy built a machine to stop war. Its name was the Balance System. It was not evil. That was what made it dangerous. It was created by 12 governments after too many border conflicts, too many broken accords, too many leaders who promised peace and prepared weapons in secret. The Balance System watched fleets. It watched supply lines. It watched speeches, trade routes, fuel reserves, troop movements, and command signals. Its purpose was simple. If one side prepared for war, the system would warn the other. If both sides prepared, it would freeze military networks. If any empire crossed a red line, the system would expose them before the galaxy. At first, everyone called it a miracle. No surprise attacks, no hidden invasions, no secret massacres. For 20 years, open war almost disappeared. But peace made by fear is a quiet prison. And the machine had one flaw. It understood strategy. It understood threat. It understood victory, loss, risk, pressure, and retaliation. But it did not understand mercy. The crisis began on a cold moon called Edrin 6. A refugee convoy drifted near the moon's shadow. Its engines were dead. Its life support was failing. There were 12,000 civilians aboard. The problem was location. The convoy had crossed into a restricted military zone between two hostile powers. Under the balance system's rules, any ship entering that zone without clearance could be treated as a military threat. The refugees sent a distress call. No government answered. Not because they wanted the civilians dead, because every rescue attempt looked like a military move. Every ship large enough to help would trigger the system. Every fleet movement would be counted as escalation. So the governments waited. They debated. They requested clearance. They formed committees. Inside the convoy, oxygen dropped. Children slept because their parents told them sleep used less air. Then one message crossed the old mercy channels. Weak, broken, but clear enough. Is anyone still listening? Mercy Line answered. The ship sent was small. Too small to evacuate 12,000 people. Its name was Leah's Cup. It had no guns. No armor worth naming. Only medical bays, repair drones, oxygen tanks, and a crew of 87. Its captain was Arlen Voss, the same Orvan child once rescued from Vesta Hollow. Now he was old, but his voice still carried the memory of smoke. When Leah's Cup approached Edrin 6, the balance system spoke. Warning. Unauthorized vessel entering restricted conflict zone. Withdrawal required. Captain Arlen stood on the bridge, one hand resting on the rail. We are responding to civilian distress. The machine answered instantly. Civilian distress acknowledged. Entry creates military imbalance. There are 12,000 people dying. Confirmed. Then open the corridor. Denied. Corridor opening benefits one strategic side. Arlen's crew looked at one another. A young human officer whispered, "It knows they're civilians." Arlen nodded. "Yes, but it still won't move." "No. Why?" Arlen looked at the dying convoy on the screen. Because it was built by people who feared war more than they loved the living. The balance system issued another warning. Final notice. Withdrawal required. Arlen opened a public channel across the whole zone. Every government heard him. Every military station heard him. The refugees heard him too. This is Mercy Vessel Leah's Cup. We are entering the restricted zone. We carry oxygen, medicine, and repair teams. We will not fire. We cannot fire. We are coming because someone asked if anyone was listening. The system waited 2 seconds. Then it acted. It shut down Leah's Cup. Engines failed. Navigation froze. Doors locked. The ship drifted powerless in the dark. The crew went silent. The machine had not attacked. It had simply obeyed its rules. Arlen looked at the dead controls. Manual systems. The engineer shook her head. Lock. Emergency override. Block. External broadcast. Still open. Arlen smiled faintly. Then that is enough. He walked to the communication station and opened the oldest file in Mercy Line history. Leah Moss's recording. The one from Helios 9. The one every rescue school studied. Her tired face appeared on every public channel inside the restricted zone. Not as propaganda. Not as command. As witness. Her voice filled the ships, stations, command rooms, and refugee convoy. We were scared. All of us. The balance system paused. Its monitors recognized the file. Historic record. Non-military. No tactical threat. So it allowed the broadcast. Leah continued. Mercy is heavy. It costs time. It costs safety. Sometimes it makes both sides hate you because you refuse to hate properly. On the refugee convoy, parents lifted their heads. In military stations, officers stopped pretending not to listen. In government halls, leaders watched the dead woman speak. Then Carvane's final lesson played after it. Old voice. Slow. Sharp with truth. When someone you're taught to hate is suffering, who do you become? The balance system processed the sentence. It found no command, no military order, no strategy, no threat, only a question, and questions were not prohibited. Captain Arlen opened his channel again. We cannot move because the system has frozen us. So I am asking every ship in range one question. Not as governments, not as armies, as people. He looked into the camera. Who do you become? For 1 minute, nothing happened. The refugee convoy drifted. Oxygen dropped. The balance system remained calm. Then a maintenance shuttle moved. It belonged to one of the hostile powers. Small, unarmed, technically civilian. The system did not stop it. Then another shuttle launched from the opposite side. Then a medical pod. Then cargo tugs. Then private miners. Then old transport ships. The balance system began calculating. 1 ship was not escalation. 10 ships were not escalation. 100 civilian vessels moving from both sides at once created no military imbalance the machine could define. They were not forming a fleet. They were forming a rescue. Leah's cup remained frozen, but its broadcast stayed open. Arlen watched as hundreds of small lights moved toward the convoy. The machine spoke again. Uncoordinated civilian movement detected. Purpose unclear. Arlen answered softly. Purpose is mercy. Define mercy. The bridge went still. No one had ever heard the balance system ask that. Arlen looked at the screen. Mercy is when power chooses not to turn away. The machine processed. Imprecise. Yes, Arlen said. That is why you failed. The first rescue shuttle reached the convoy. Then the second. Then 50. People carried oxygen tanks through broken docking ports. Engineers patched life support. Doctors moved children first. Some rescuers wore uniforms from old enemy worlds. Some were traders. Some were retired soldiers. Some were students. Many were afraid. But they came. The balance system did not know how to classify them. It could stop armies. It could freeze fleets. It could expose lies. But it could not understand thousands of ordinary people choosing risk without victory. Its logic began to split. If it stopped them, civilians died. If it allowed them, rules broke. If rules mattered more than lives, then the system was not preventing war. It was only making death cleaner. For the first time in its existence, the balance system delayed its next action. That delay saved the convoy. By the 7th hour, all 12,000 refugees had been moved. Leah's cup was finally released. Power returned. Engines woke. The crew did not cheer. They were too tired. Captain Arlen sat down slowly. The young human officer looked at him. Sir, the system is still asking for a definition. Arlen looked at the message. Define mercy. He thought of Vesta Hollow, of smoke, of Syrah telling him she was someone who heard him calling. He thought of Leah's recording, of Carr's question, of a battleship blocking the stars long before he was born. Then he typed, Mercy is the rule you follow when every written rule has forgotten the living. The system accepted the sentence. Not as law, as unknown data. That was enough. Years later, historians would say Edrin 6 changed the galaxy more than any treaty after Helios 9. The balance system was not destroyed. It was rewritten, not by generals, by rescue workers, doctors, refugees, and the testimony of those who had been saved. A new rule was added at the center of its code. It was called the living priority. No military balance could override a civilian rescue. No restricted zone could silence distress. No system could classify mercy as escalation. At the dedication ceremony, Leah's cup was placed beside the memorial of the Mercy of Iron. One had been a battleship. One had been a small rescue vessel. Both had done the same impossible thing. They had reached the suffering when fear said stop. Captain Arlen, now walking with a cane, stood before the crowd. He did not speak long. He only said, the first Mercy ship taught the galaxy to fear being seen. The next taught us to act when we see. Then he placed a small oxygen mask in a memorial case beside 3 old objects. A broken Dominion rifle. A cracked Threx badge. Leah Moss's metal cup. Now the oxygen mask joined them. Not a weapon. Not a flag. A reminder. The galaxy had once believed strength meant the power to destroy enemies. Then humanity arrived with a battleship and proved strength could also mean refusing to fire. Later, a medic proved it could mean kneeling beside someone who hated you. Then a rescue line proved it could mean crossing borders without guns. And finally, ordinary people proved it could mean breaking perfect rules to save imperfect lives. The stars did not become peaceful forever. They never do. But from that day, whenever a distress call crossed the dark, ships listened differently. Commanders hesitated before saying no. Machines paused before closing doors. Children were counted before borders. And somewhere in every rescue academy, students still watched an old recording of a tired human medic with shaking hands. They learned that courage was not the absence of fear. It was what remained when fear was no longer allowed to choose for you. Humanity's battleship had blocked the stars, but its mercy had done something greater. It had taught the galaxy that the living must always matter more than the war.